a lot of people have said that's a sweetheart deal because if anybody else were to be charged with this many tax crime or these kind of tax crimes, they'd likely go to jail, and it wouldn't just be misdemeanors.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by Congressional reporter Reese Gorman. Reese, we're talking about investigating the investigators on Capitol Hill right now. What are Republican-led House committees doing to investigate the investigations of Hunter Biden, the president's son?
Yeah, so when the plea deal came out, it was just going to be 2 misdemeanors and 1 felony count and likely skirt jail time. That angered a lot of Republicans on the Hill. Mm-hmm. And then after the IRS whistleblowers recently had their testimony released showing that there was significant kind of interference, or alleging there was significant interference between the investigation of Hunter Biden by David Weiss, the U.S. Attorney out of Delaware, and the DOJ, like blocking which jurisdiction he could bring charges in, rejecting a special counsel request. That really kind of pushed forward a lot of the investigations, because currently, I mean, the biggest investigation was going on in oversight, with James Comer looking at the FD 1023s and the foreign bribery allegations taking place. And Judiciary was doing a little bit of their own, but Ways and Means, since they are the tax committee, they had the jurisdiction to get these whistleblower testimonies from the IRS whistleblowers, and there's 2 of them. Gary Shapley is one of them, and then an unnamed whistleblower. And they made a bunch of allegations that McCarthy even said that if they're true, they're going to start impeachment inquiries into Attorney General Merrick Garland because of it. And if they are true, I mean, those are significant hindrances and interference with the investigation into Hunter Biden.
So instead of having all of these things sort of siloed in different committees, you're seeing the relevant committees sort of working together on this.
They are, and so they really have started working together. They've released joint statements. They've released statements about that each committee is going to request transcribed interviews with the agency that falls under their jurisdiction. Oversight's requesting interviews from Secret Service agents. Judiciary is requesting transcribed interviews with DOJ officials, and Ways and Means are requesting transcribed interviews with IRS employees. And there's over a dozen different employees that have been requested to come sit before these committees to go deeper into what happened with the Hunter Biden investigation. Right now there's no subpoenas, it's just requesting, but the committee did say in their letters that they will issue subpoenas if they don't respond.
So the idea of a 2-tiered system of justice and the weaponization of the justice system against conservatives or Republicans has been a pretty big emphasis of this current majority, no?
100%, and it's definitely been kind of exacerbated after former President Donald Trump's indictment and the 37-count felony indictment there. And then I think it was just a week later after that happened, there was the Hunter Biden stuff that dropped, where he was only charged with 2 misdemeanors and 1 felony count and will likely avoid jail time. And so I think that just gave him a comparison to make, like, oh, the former president's this, and now they're not comparable crimes. They're 2 very different things. But I think that's something they're looking at too, is the comparison. And then also on the tax crimes from Hunter Biden, a lot of people have said that's a sweetheart deal because if anybody else were to be charged with this many tax crimes or these kind of tax crimes, they'd likely go to jail, and it wouldn't just be misdemeanors. And so I think that just gives them an example and something to point to as the weaponization.
So this is an issue that unites House Republicans, but there's been a lot of things happening recently that divide them. What is the current state with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's majority?
Yeah, I mean, they left on a relatively high note. They were able to come together and censure Adam Schiff. He was able to calm things down with Lauren Boebert and get her impeachment resolution to a committee.
Yeah, they were trying to impeach President Biden, but not through the normal
committee process. Through a way that would privilege resolution, which would skirt committees and just go straight to the floor. But we're getting into appropriation season now, and so the people, most of them in the Freedom Caucus, some of them aren't, just some of the more harder conservative members of Congress really want to see spending levels set at like fiscal year 2022 levels, which is below the caps that were set in the debt ceiling bill. And they've already begun marking up these appropriations bills in that, which is, I mean, that will get through the House. that'll pass the House. But like we saw during the debt ceiling deal, that's not going to make it through the Senate. Biden's not going to go for that. And so it's going to have to look like a compromise.
Right.
And there's going to have to be some compromise. And also Republicans in the Senate don't want that either. So it's not just going to be Democrats that are against it. It's going to be fellow Republicans in the Senate. And so it's going to look different. And that's when McCarthy will, again, be tested, because they're going to be really mad. And it only takes 5 of them to block anything or stop anything. And as we saw, they've blocked the floor for a whole week. So I think that's really what will be tested. Yeah, he might be flying high a little bit right now, getting some accomplishments. But ultimately, it's
The
we're just looking
appropriations
forward.
process is where the rubber really meets the road.
Indeed it does. And he's going to, how does he hold his conference together? He did it during debt ceiling.
Right.
Then that was a win. He was able to get that through. But we saw the fallout of that afterwards. And I feel like appropriations, they're not going to want to feel slighted more than once. And so if they feel slighted again, and something that they've made clear is a huge issue for them.
And he relies on Democratic votes to pass it.
And arguably there were more Democrats that voted for debt ceiling than Republicans that voted for it.
Right.
So that's not something they're going to want to see again.
All right, Freedom Caucus didn't think that's what they were bargaining for.
Not at all.
Thank you, Reese.
Thank you, Jim.
You can read Reese and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.